So the mod is out. So a couple of months ago, I made an AI version of DDLC. It was very basic, and at the time, you could only have basic dialogue with Monica, kind of like character AI, but you could actually see the emotions of characters based on what you said, and you could also go to different locations in the game and have generated scenes show up. I also took this time to make a few memes. You know, some of you may have seen this going around. You're welcome. That was me. It was inspired by Genshin. But anyways, now the game is pretty different. Before, the character selection looked like this. Pretty boring and lame. But now, check out this cool design. Yeah. Special thanks to Electronica and It's Wolfie, because I did not design this. I just found the template they made for it and thought it looks cool, so used it. It's good. The other thing that's new is the ability to add custom characters, and not only that, but custom backgrounds as well. I made a custom character called Sam, and I thought it'd be funny to just have him hate Monica with a passion. It's really fun talking to characters that just have a short temper, and it's definitely because they're just easier to mess with. Which now brings me to dialogue. In the video, I was using OpenAI to generate text, since it was faster, and at the time, the quality was pretty good. But now, because of IP guidelines, I can't have that included in the mod, so I replaced OpenAI with Olama, which is a third-party software that makes it easy to set up local AI models on your machine. The performance is definitely noticeable. If you're on a low-end device, responses will be really slow. I personally have 4 GB of RAM and 4 GB of VRAM, and responses take about 30 to 60 seconds. It's not terrible, but it's a lot worse compared to the speeds I was getting with OpenAI's API, which is why I made an API version of the mod that uses Grok. Not this Grok, this Grok. It's a separate thing, so I know it's confusing. Grok is an API that allows you to use really good models that every low-end device would not be able to even dream of running at these speeds. If you wanted to test a mod out and you have like a very slow computer, you could use this version. Currently, Grok is free as of me recording this, but if they do add a paid subscription, then I have to delete the GitHub repository, or maybe just the project files to comply with Team Salvato's IP guidelines. If it requires you to even pay, then I can't have it up. But right now it's free, so you can test it out. I almost forgot to mention this, but you can still go to different areas in the game, but you can't have generated backgrounds like you could in the original video, for the same reason that OpenAI is no longer used in the mod. And I'll get into that later, but right now you can download the mod on Windows or Linux. There is a Mac version, but apparently people have been having problems with it, so Mac may not be supported. The game does have a bit of lore to it, but it doesn't go that far in the demo. Originally, I wanted to have some sort of story mode, which I may mess around with, but I may just add it in the full release, or maybe have a rough version of that in the demo. But honestly, for the time it took the mod to be released, it's pretty mid, just to be honest. I wasn't working on it for 8 months straight, and I'll get into why it took so long to be released later. But you could probably get the same amount of fun out of something like Miku.gg. It's not sponsored. I haven't messed around with it much myself, but essentially it looks like it allows you to talk to character sprites the same way the mod does. It also looks like they have a lot more features and are still continuing to add more, which is cool. Now you might be wondering, wouldn't this make less people download your mod? Why would you tell people about this? I'm not in competition with anyone to have the best AI visual novel. The mod was a small passion project to me for a while, but it's not a dream project. I don't have it in me anymore to continue to work on this project. I feel like I've exhausted my ability to care about working on this anymore. I felt at least obligated to upload a working version of the mod since I showcased it, but in terms of features, that's going to be slowed down indefinitely. And this isn't me abandoning the project entirely, although I mean I guess it kind of is, but it's more accurately an indefinite hiatus for this project specifically. I can see myself coming back and start refining things. I do maybe eventually plan on coming back and make some type of beta or full release, but not really anytime soon. And you know, there's people currently that are helping like push some features out, which has been really helpful. So there is that as well, and I think I'll still be active for that when I have the time. But yeah, right now I just don't feel like committing too much to the project anymore. Okay, but yeah, that's the update. If you haven't downloaded a DDLC mod before, then if you go to the GitHub page and scroll down and look for the setup section, there'll be a link that'll take you to this page, which tells you how to download the mod. If you already know how to set up a DDLC mod and you know how to download it and stuff like that, then you don't need this. It's basically the same setup. For setting up a llama, which is how the AI portion of the mod actually works, the mod already has a built-in tutorial and a guide that'll teach you how to do that. So yeah, it definitely depends on the model that you're using. If you're using Llama 3, for example, it won't allow you to say anything, but if you used the uncensored model, then you could get away with saying a lot more. It's still not completely uncensored, but the neat thing about it being local is that, unlike ChatGPT, for example, you could jailbreak it without the fear of getting banned from using their AI. So if you really wanted to make it as uncensored as possible, you could try jailbreaking it. If you have a low-end device, then I suggest using the Grok version of the mod, if that's still out when you're seeing this. But even if you don't have a low-end device, Grok has far better models you can use at really fast speeds. You'll likely still be able to run the regular mod, but if you don't have a decent computer, then responses will be slow. I personally have 4GB of RAM and 4GB of VRAM, and it takes me about 30 seconds to a minute to generate a response, which isn't terrible, but still pretty slow. It takes some people like 8 minutes or more because they only have like 128 megabytes of VRAM. To simplify, your RAM is what allows you to actually run an AI model, and the amount of VRAM you have is what determines the speed of responses. This question was actually asked by me, but I know a couple of people are likely wondering this as well, but basically, 3 main reasons for why it took long, so I'll get into that. When I initially released the game in October 31st, the game was buggy. Despite me working on the project every day since the showcase, so for about a few weeks, a lot of people were having problems running the game on their machine. Tons of things were just breaking and not working as intended. The second reason is the IP guidelines. For those of you who don't know, DDLC was published by Team Salvato, and according to Team Salvato's IP guidelines, official DDLC assets may not be used in standalone games. They may only be used in mods that must be patched into the official DDLC or DDLC Plus game. So the thing that I showcased in the video was actually a fan game, and the fan game was using official assets. So I couldn't do that, and I found out about this 2 days before the initial release, and just stayed up attempting to convert the game into a mod, but it still ended up not being a mod, because I didn't know how to properly convert it into a mod, but I thought I did, but it's like, Also, the other thing was how the game relied on OpenAI to generate text, as well as using some background generators. The guidelines state that no profit may be made from these fan works in any way except for fan work that constitutes as fair use. I talked about this briefly in the community post. I don't make a profit from the AI edition, but I wasn't sure if they'd be okay with me using OpenAI since they'd make a profit from it. I should have delayed the initial release so I could have more time to solve these issues, but because I had already said I planned on releasing on October 31st, I didn't want to go back on that and just rushed to have something out. And someone even told me about how their first time went releasing a mod and how they felt rushed into releasing and having tons of stuff break because of that. And it's not that I didn't believe them, it's just that in my mind I said I was going to release on the 31st and I really didn't want to go back on that. I feel like it's one of those things where you just have to kind of experience for yourself to really get it. So I made some irrational decisions trying to make everything work within the short amount of time I had left. And so I want to address some of that. In this showcase video, I made it pretty clear that you had to use OpenAI and image generators, which are all things you would have to pay for. But in the release, I said that you didn't have to do that if you read the README file. This is technically true, but it's disingenuous. At the time, OpenAI had a limited free tier if you were using it for the first time, but that free tier would run out if you used it too much. The image generator also had a free tier, but similarly only up to a certain amount. Although apparently for some people, OpenAI didn't have a free tier for them, I'm not sure. Basically, to use anything involving AI with the game would require you to pay those third-party services if you used up the free tier. The intention wasn't to trick users, but it was more so just a workaround to have OpenAI in the game, because it would have been impossible for me to try to figure out how to implement local models within a day and revamp the prompts entirely and a bunch of stuff with the little knowledge I knew back then, which is again why I should have delayed it. Irrational and rushed decisions. I'm not proud of this and I wanted to address it. And I'm sorry to the three of you that were confused by this, and to Team Salvato. I did take the game down within a couple of hours, so not much damage was done. Most people don't even know that there was an initial release. I eventually asked a Team Salvato member months later after I took the game down if they would be okay with me using OpenAI, and they said the following: any fan game or mod that allows the player to pay for this type of service is against our IP guidelines, and we would ask that it would not be made. So I complied. I removed OpenAI, and I was thinking of making some type of video where I could show people to set up an OpenAI version of the DLC, but I mean, again, you could probably just use Miku.gg, and there's that you could run. But this brings me to my third reason for why the mod took so long, and it's that I got exhausted. For about a month or two, the first thing I would do when I woke up was just work on the game, and which of course was tedious and annoying at times, but I stuck to it and eventually showcased it. After I took the mod down, I didn't want to force myself to keep working on something while exhausted, but at the same time, I didn't also want to just do nothing. I showcased an AI version of DDLC, so I at least felt obligated to get something out. So I shifted to working on a Discord bot. It was basically a roundabout way for me to refactor a bunch of code without needing to touch the actual fan game, which actually worked out pretty well. It was really easy to take the mechanics I used in the Discord bot and just transfer everything into the mod itself. It also just felt way more comfortable to work with, since I'm familiar with coding Discord bots and I'm not familiar with coding in RenPy. Now at this point I felt like I had a good enough foundation for the mod. So I paused production by working on a different project, which I think took about a month or two. Then I came back, started working on the mod again, and now it's out. I've definitely learned a lot working on this project, and I'm excited to work on new stuff for myself to try to get better. My skills are mediocre. Anyone with some coding knowledge and passion should be able to make something like this, but now moving on to something else. This project had so much potential, I know, but hey look, the project is open sourced. If you want to use it or reference the stuff there, you could make your own version. Otherwise, you could just check out Miku blah blah blah. Anyways, that's all for now, gastropods. I'll see you whenever I see you.